Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're joining me, Devi Paldano. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this evening. Inclement weather affects 5,000. One life lost. Authorities issue landslide warnings. Travel restrictions relaxed further. Places of worship to be kept open. Marriage ceremonies allowed. Adopt quarantine regulations only to curb the COVID-19 spread. Our association requests the health services chief. Permission to dredge Tissamaharama Vava to be given on Monday. A decision by the Archaeological department. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has launched a national program to plant 4 million coconut saplings.
The national program, dubbed Dorin Dorata Kapruka, was launched at the Velikati estate of Chilau Plantations Limited. The exercise aims at increasing the annual harvest of 2.8 billion coconuts to 3.6 billion. The Plantation Ministry, the State Ministry of Coconut, Kitul and Palmyra Cultivation Promotion and the Coconut Cultivation Board are carrying out the national program. The President inspected a coconut cultivation that had been carried out using organic fertilizer in abandoned fields. He then visited the Coconut Research Institute in Lunovilla. The organizers of the national program engaged in the distribution and the plantation of coconut saplings in several parts of the country.
A 76-year-old person died after an earth embankment collapsed on him in Dolombage, Gampola. The Disaster Management Center said that 5,777 people across 6 districts have been affected by the inclement weather. The southwest monsoon brought heavy showers to many areas in the island both last night and this morning.
Minor floods were reported in the Ratnapura town and surrounding areas triggered by showers last night. Flow of traffic was affected in the Ratnapura town after roads were inundated. This is how houses in the area were flooded. Approximately 450 houses in Godigamur, Ratnapura were inundated. Families in the area were evacuated to safe locations. Strong winds that swept across Ahaliagoda along with heavy showers had damaged a number of houses. 10 houses in Sitavaka Avisawella were flooded. Gale winds in Madampe Chilau this morning had damaged houses in the area. A large banyan tree along the Colombo-Irattekulama road had been uprooted by the strong winds. A nearby hotel was also damaged. The Bulat Sinhala Molkava road was inundated in Paragoda after the spill gates of the Kukuleganga Reservoir were opened. 25 houses in Fordayaswatta, Hatton were flooded after the Dikkoya Canal overflowed. A house in Kudagama, Hatton was completely destroyed after an earth embankment collapsed on it. The dog barked. We then opened the windows and moved out. We saw the earth embankment collapsing. The house was completely destroyed. Our lives were saved because we woke up when the dog started barking. 3 spill gates of the upper Kotmale Reservoir have been opened due to the heavy showers. The water levels of the St. Clair and Devon Falls have also increased. The Hatton-Colombo main road was closed after an earth embankment collapsed and blocked the road. The road from Ginigathena to Colombo has been blocked after earth embankments collapsed at a number of locations along the road. Motorists must be cautioned while travelling along this road. There is a risk of more earth embankments collapsing. Be cautious when using this road. Many low-lying areas and roads in Hididuma were flooded. Flow of traffic along the Udagama-Nelluwa main road was hampered after it was inundated at Mahabodhivatta. Many fishermen in Trincomalee did not go out to sea due to the inclement weather at sea. Many fishermen who went out to sea returned to shore owing to the strong winds at sea. We were not informed of the situation by anyone. If the Met Department informed us, we would have not gone out to sea. A landslide occurred in Yatiberiya Kitulgala Yatiyantota. The landslide had completely blocked the Hatton-Colombo main road. According to our correspondent, 3 families at risk in the area were relocated to safe shelters. The Minister of Energy said that damages caused to power lines due to the inclement weather had cut off the supply of power to about 85,000 consumers. 1 person was killed after an earth embankment collapsed on a house in Dolosbage, Gampola. According to police, the deceased was 76 years old. Landslide warnings have been issued to several divisional secretariats in the Gaul, Kalutara, Kandy, Matara, Colombo, Nuwara Eliya and Ratnapura districts. Landslide warnings were issued to the Sitavaka and Paduka divisional secretariats in the Colombo district, the Nelluwa and Alpitiya divisional secretariats in the Gaul district, the Pitabeddara, Akuressa, Mulatiyana and Athuraliya divisional secretariats in the Mathura district, the Palindanuwara, Valalavita, Agalavatta, Matugama and Bulat Sinhala divisional secretariats in the Kalutara district, the Pasbage and Ganga Ihala Korale divisional secretariats in the Kandy district, the Yatiyantota, Dehiyovita, Ruwanwella, Daraniyagala and Bulat Kohopitiya divisional secretariats in the Kegaul district, and the Abagamuwa divisional secretariat in the Nuwara Eliya district, and the Ehaliyagoda, Kolonna, Nivitigala, Kuruvita, Kahavatta, Kalawana, Imbulpe, Ratnapura, Ayagama, Godagama and Alapatha divisional secretariats in the Ratnapura district.
Sri Lanka is experiencing the southwest monsoon. We expect this situation to decline after tomorrow. At present, showers or thunder showers may occur in the western, central, Sabargama, northwest and southern provinces. Showers exceeding 100 millimeters will occur in the western and Sabargama provinces and the Kandy, Nuwara Eliya, Gaul and Mathura districts. Wind speeds in the western slopes of the central hills could increase up to 80 kilometers per hour. Wind speeds in the north, north-central, northwestern and southern provinces and the western coastal areas in the Trincomalee district could increase up to 60 or 70 kilometers. Wind speeds in coastal areas between Trincomalee and Kankasanture and deep and shallow sea areas of Mana, Puttalam, Colombo, Hambantota and Potuville could increase up to 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. The seas could also become rough during this period.
Now taking a look at another one of your COVID-19 updates. Authorities have relaxed more COVID-19 restrictions from today.
The latest guidelines have been issued by the Director General of Health Services. It says that interprovincial travel will remain restricted for 2 more weeks. Places of worship have been allowed to reopen. Weddings can be held with the amount of guests limited to 150 or 25% of the seating capacity. Funerals should be held within 24 hours receiving the body with a maximum of 50 attendees. Meetings can be held with 25% of the seating capacity at the respective venue. Conferences, seminars and brand launches are permitted with a maximum of 50 on-site attendees. Permission has been granted to hold examinations as well. Cinemas and theatres can be open with a maximum of 50% of the total seating capacity. Museums can be open as long as the number of guests not exceeding 50% of the space available. Economic centres are permitted to engage in a wholesale trading under strict health guidelines. Swimming pools will also be open to the public. The newly issued guidelines permit salon, beauty parlours and also ready-made garments and textile shops to remain open. but casinos, nightclubs and betting centres will remain closed. Public transport services will be carried out according to the previous guidelines. The relaxed restrictions will not apply to areas that are under isolation.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka has inked an agreement to obtain a loan of $150 million from the Asian Development Bank. Finance Secretary S.R. Archaeological has said that the loan would be used to purchase vaccines and for several other associated activities. The agreement for the loan was signed yesterday. COVID-19 vaccines were administered at several areas today. Fishermen in Mannar received the Pfizer vaccine. The fishermen were inoculated in Pesale. The vaccination of employees linked to the tourism industry also began today. Sinopharm vaccines were administered to tour guides of Tissamaharama Hambantota. Minister of Tourism Prasanna Ranatunga and Minister of Sports Namal Rajapaksa were among those who were present to monitor the vaccination program. Employees attached to the tourism industry also received jabs at several areas in Tissamaharama. Vaccines were administered at Diyata Uyana in Battaramulla by the army for the 5th consecutive day today.
The Bar Association has raised concerns regarding the arbitrary arrest of protesters. Of course, you can get the very latest of that right after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Do your online shopping now. Sambole.lk.
The magical sounds of Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. This year's Summer Night Concert, 18th of July 2021, 5 p.m. onwards, exclusively on TV1.
Welcome back to the news. Now taking a look at one of your headline-making stories. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka expresses its grave concern at the arrests and detention of protesters by the Sri Lanka police for violating COVID-19 health regulations. The association said they are alarmed at the increasing threat posed to the rights of the individual by the press releases and circulars issued by the Sri Lanka police under the guise of controlling the spread of COVID-19.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka had highlighted these concerns in a letter addressed to the Director General of Health Services and the Inspector General of Police. The association highlights that these arrests have occurred subsequent to a press release by the Police Media Division dated the 6th of July 2021, which purports to convey an extract from a letter sent by the Director General of Health Services to the police. The letter goes on to note that although the press release in question has prohibited public meetings and protests involving mass gatherings, it does not contemplate a total prohibition of meetings and protests. The Bar Association said that at a time the Director General of Health Services has thought it fit to ease restrictions previously imposed. The BASL sees no reasonable cause whatsoever for the police to act in a heavy-handed manner when dealing with protesters. The letter points out that the BASL has taken note of several instances and is deeply concerned as to how individuals, after having been granted bail, have been forcibly seized from the precincts of the courthouses and sent to quarantine against their will. It adds that there is scant evidence that such decisions were based on the advice of health officials, such as public health inspectors. The letter adds that compounding these concerns are the fact that even persons infected with COVID-19 and their first contacts are being quarantined at their respective homes or hotels rather than being taken to quarantine centers. The Bar Association stresses that according to the extraordinary gazette issued by the Minister of Health on the 15th of October last year, quarantining necessarily relates to a person who has contracted the disease or is suspected to have contracted the disease and to no other. It adds that quarantine is a health precaution and should not be used as a punishment or mode of detention. The Bar Association called upon the Director General of Health Services not to allow the health guidelines to be abused in a manner which has a chilling effect on the freedom of dissent, and to ensure that health regulations and guidelines are used only for the purpose they were promulgated, which is to curb the spread of COVID-19. The association is of the view that these acts of forced detention in quarantine centres are arbitrary, unlawful and are an affront to the judiciary who have released the said persons on bail. The letter goes on to state that such arrests and forcible detentions have a negative effect and undermine the genuine efforts being taken by the health authorities, the security forces and the police to combat COVID-19. Various views were expressed regarding the conduct of the police when arresting protesters. We are disturbed to witness the police acting in a disgraceful manner under this government. I saw that several groups which backed this government into power were present at that location. Therefore, these are sensitive issues that must be resolved peacefully through discussions. But the police acted in a manner that even affected elderly mothers. We oppose how the police conducted themselves while dealing with the venerable Theras as well. The government, which earlier said that they would not put forward this legislation, is now launching these attacks. Therefore, the people must fight against this. They must stand against this. Otherwise, we might even lose our fundamental rights. We know that steps are being taken to privatize and sell several public assets in Colombo Fort. We need to take steps to bring these politicians under our control. They seem to be reigning supreme over us. We must form a strong network and make the politicians submissive to the people. People from both sides will be arrested. The president has instructed that the quarantine regulations must be respected, regardless of whether they are in government or in the opposition. We saw the police escorting a venerable Thera amid a scrum in a disgraceful manner. Earlier, venerable Theras were taken to religious ceremonies on palanquins that were carried by 4 people. That is how they were escorted to religious ceremonies in the past. But what we saw recently was something that is new. The venerable Thera was taken away by about 4 policemen who were holding on to his limbs. The people are asking whether the venerable Thera was taken away for a religious ceremony. Who is instructing the police to take such measures? This is bringing disrepute to the police department. Who is bringing disrepute to the senior officials in the health sector? We are wondering whether we have elected people with an unsound mind into power. Certain shortcomings took place. I am also a teacher. Therefore, I regret the scenes that were witnessed when the police took steps to quell the protests by the teachers' union. I too have concerns over it. With regard to the attacks on protesters, including that on women within the premises of the court, my personal opinion is that they must not be moved to a certain location without their consent after they have been released on bail by a court.
The police is exerting pressure on the people who took to the streets as they couldn't handle the burden on their lives. The people are reacting to that. Although the police are exerting pressure, the people are exercising the democratic tool of protesting against the lack of fertilizer, the closure of schools, the rise in the cost of goods, and the destruction of national resources. If the government is unhappy, assuming that they have done the right thing by issuing gazettes and formulating new laws to suppress these protests, we wish to tell them that it is not the case. The government must understand that this will aggravate the burden on the people. When the people cannot stand it anymore, the situation would go completely out of hand.
Parliamentarian Dr. Vijay Dasarajpaksa says the belief that COVID-19 laws are being used to suppress public opinion has gripped the society with fear.
The Quarantine and Prevention of Diseases Ordinance number 3 of 1897 was introduced under the British rule. Although it has existed for 124 years, it was implemented only during a pandemic like this. The provisions of this law were enforced since the inception of the COVID-19 outbreak to curb the spread of the pandemic. But attempts have been made to enforce laws of foreign countries that go against our constitution in a bid to tighten the existing laws. But as a sovereign state, the Supreme Court has ruled that the Parliament does not have the power to pass such laws. The Supreme Court's interpretation points out that efforts have been taken to enforce harsh laws that go against the scope of battling the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, there is a fear that these laws may be used to suppress public opinion rather than being used to curb the spread of COVID-19.
තියෙනවා මේ හරහා කොවිඩ් 19 වසංගතයේ මර්ධනයට වැඩිය ජනතා මතය මර්ධනය කිරීම සඳහා මේ යොදා ගනී කියලා.
This is a special segment by Newsfirst in line with the National Archaeology Week. Today we bring your attention to Buduruvagala Archaeological Site in Monoragala.
Protect our heritage.
The Buduruvagala Archaeological Site, situated in the Buduruvagala village that falls under the purview of the Vallavaya Divisional Secretariat in the Monoragala district, is strong evidence of the influence of Mahayana Buddhism in the Ruhuna Kingdom. The most notable sculpture at this site, which is considered a monastery complex, is a statue of Lord Buddha carved into the face of a rock. The statue is at the center of the site, believed to be sculpted between the 7th and 10th century AD, and is considered the tallest stone Buddha statue in Sri Lanka. The statue of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, placed to the right, and the statue of Manjushri Bodhisattva, placed to the left, are some of the attractions Buduruvagala boasts of. Evidence remains that the statues used to be covered in limestone extract and painted in vibrant colors. In order to enjoy our history, we need to protect our history.
Protect our heritage.
And another one of your headline-making stories. The Archaeology Department says it will permit a project to dredge and clean up the Tissa Maharama Vava from Monday. Its Director General Anura Manatunga made these remarks upon inspecting the site of the project.
The Director General of the Department of Archaeology and a team of experts visited the site of the project today.
We went to inspect the project to clean up the Tissa Maharama Vava. We inspected how the machinery is being operated to carry out the project and the individuals who are involved in it. We felt that the project can go ahead. It will not cause any damage to the artifacts. If any damage would be caused to artifacts, we will dispatch an official to monitor the project and then allow it to proceed. We hope to grant written approval for this on Monday. Those machines can be used to extract artifacts without damaging them, rather than dredging the Vava in a different manner.
Are the machines used in the project to dredge the 1,500-year-old historic Tissa Maharama Vava specifically built for cleanup activities, or are they built to explore for valuable materials? What are these components that can be seen on these machines?
They are carrying out dredging at the wrong place. This is a Vava that is of historical and archaeological importance. It is believed to contain artifacts of items used during the period of the kings.
The concerns raised by locals cannot be disregarded. On what basis were foreigners who lack expertise in cleaning up a historically important site allowed to engage in this project? Will Sri Lankans receive permission to carry out excavations on pyramids in Egypt? Will foreigners receive permission to engage in excavation or construction activities on locations linked to the Incas of Peru? Such permission will not be granted, as they belong to the heritage of those nations. The Vava is our heritage and is unique to Sri Lanka. The UNESCO has declared the Vava as a World Heritage Site due to its significant importance. Professor Joseph Needham, a former biochemist and historian in the UK, said China cannot surpass Sri Lanka's hydraulic engineering technology, despite possessing a technology that is superior than the rest of the world. Historical records show that Sri Lankan hydraulic engineering experts have shared their knowledge with other nations as resource persons. Isn't it shameful that foreigners who lack knowledge on Sri Lanka's hydraulic engineering technology have been allowed to dredge one of our heritage sites? And isn't it unfortunate that this permission was granted during the National Archaeology Week. What steps has the Department of Archaeology taken against those who were involved in dredging the Vaver unlawfully?
A proper survey must be carried out to determine the extent of the sand bed. I wish to emphasize that this bed must not be cleared. That is because a mud layer with a thickness of at least 1 feet must be left behind. Only the excess should be cleaned away. Therefore, this must be done carefully and meticulously. Dredging the Vaver in a haphazard manner is a massive damage to this nation.
The wall of the Mineria Vaver that was constructed in 286 AD, even before the British set foot on our island in the 19th century, continues to remain intact. The Vaver is the only man-made ancient creation that has continued to serve mankind even today. It is due to this reason that Gummather joined hands with the University of Peradeniya to explore the water cascade system and the irrigation system that has existed in our nation for centuries.
The Archaeological Department seems to be acting in a very strange manner. There is a foreign government which has come to Tissamaram. They have started the dredging of the Tissa Vaver. There are military personnel who have been involved. All this was brought to light by the media. Until then, the Archaeological Department did not know that they were coming and dredging heritage sites. Our heritage sites are supposed to be protected. The people who are supposed to protect the heritage sites have gone to sleep. It is after the work has started. The Archaeological Director General is now saying he has given permission to do it. The Archaeological Commissioner is responsible to the people, and the Archaeological Commissioner will have to be responsible for future governments. So this kind of arbitrary actions of government servants must stop. The government servants and even the police, all of them will have to, with a very clear mind, they'll have to see to this.
A demonstration demanding a solution for the fertilizer crisis was held at the Pituwala Junction in Galle today.
The protest was organized by the National Federation of Small Tea Estate Owners.
We have taken to the streets demanding suitable fertilizer for our cultivation. They cannot stop us by making us afraid. Farmers have been forced to hit the streets today. Our cultivations are ruined. The industries in the sector is in shambles. Markets have crashed. They have led the tea industry into utter chaos.
These are the farmers of Valimada, Pitapola and Kutupilithanna.
A single potato has not grown properly. What will happen to the cost of potatoes in the next couple of months? These carrots have not been infected with any disease, but this has happened due to the lack of fertilizer. We can't this. When we stage protests, they assume that they are politically motivated. There is no need to turn this into a political issue.
Farmers complain that the harvest reaped from the fields of Oluvaver in Anuradhapura has reduced drastically.
Instead of providing farmers with fertilizer, the government is on the verge of suppressing them. We demand the government to halt any moves to suppress farmers. This issue cannot be resolved by suppressing farmers. The harvest for this season has dropped by 80%.
Farmers lament that the shortage of fertilizer has affected black gram cultivations.
The Department of Government Information says a decision has not been reached to lift the ban on chemical fertilizer and pesticides. It has refuted reports on websites and social media that Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa has reversed President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's decision to ban chemical fertilizer and pesticide imports. A statement issued by the department notes that the government is not contemplating to reverse the decision to transition into 100% organic farming. Journalists questioned Agriculture Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage on the recent amendments to the duties and functions of ministers.
It has not been removed. You are not aware of that. I am the minister in charge of this subject. There was a Ministry of Organic Fertilizer earlier as well. That ministry has been given to the State Minister Shashindra Rajapaksha. Mohan De Silva received another ministry. 4 ministerial subjects under Shashindra Rajapaksha were received by the Agriculture Ministry. Therefore, these subjects have only been restructured. The Agriculture Ministry falls under my purview. No subjects have been removed.
London-based Barclays Bank has recommended investors to purchase the Sri Lanka's short-dated international sovereign bonds as the immediate risk of a debt adjustment and default fears ease off following the expected near-term improvement in the liquidity position.
Barclays stated, quote, although Sri Lanka's foreign reserves remain low, we think the immediate risk of a debt adjustment event has eased, unquote. They added that this is because Sri Lanka has secured a number of liquidity lines and loans with foreign central banks and agencies, which have eased funding pressure through near-term access to foreign currency. The report highlights that Sri Lanka's liquidity position has improved through a 3-year $1.5 billion bilateral currency swap agreement with China, a $500 million loan to Sri Lanka in early April by the China Development Bank, a concessional loan from Korea, a $200 million currency swap agreement with Bangladesh, resuming a $400 million swap line with the Reserve Bank of India, and the IMF special drawing rights allocation.
Now on to international news. Haiti's interim government says it has requested the United Nations and the United States to send troops to help secure key infrastructure. This comes after the assassination of their president, which inevitably plunged the country into turmoil.
A letter from the Prime Minister's office to the UN officers dated 7th of July, the day Moise was shot dead at home, said the aim was to support the efforts of the National Police aiming to re-establish security and public order in the whole territory. The 15-member UN Security Council would need to authorize a deployment of UN peacekeepers or police to Haiti. The request comes as the interim government tries to stabilize the country and prepare the way for elections in the aftermath of Moise's assassination. Meanwhile, in a sign of mounting fear and desperation in Haiti, a large crowd has gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince yesterday. An estimated 1,000 people flocked to the grounds around the building, following unsubstantiated rumors on radio and social media that the U.S. will be handing out humanitarian visas.
Myanmar's military ruler has announced that Russia will send 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines from this month. This Southeast Asian country reported another record in COVID-19 cases and deaths yesterday.
General Min Aung, who led a February 1st coup against Aung San Suu Kyi's elected government, said the virus was spreading fast in Myanmar and that senior Russian defense officials had told him help with vaccines was on the way. He said last month that he was seeking 7 million doses of the Russian vaccine. Vietnam has received the first consignment of 2 million doses of the Moderna vaccine donated by the US government. The embassy said in a statement that the shipment, delivered via the COVAX sharing facility, is part of the 80 million vaccine doses President Joe Biden committed from US vaccine supplies to support global needs. Meanwhile, Bangkok and 9 provinces will go into lockdown from tomorrow as COVID-19 cases continue to surge in Thailand. Australia's New South Wales state reported its biggest daily rise in locally acquired COVID-19 infections this year yesterday. Authorities have warned that the worst may yet to come for Sydney, which is in a 3-week hard lockdown. Health authorities said no fully vaccinated people have required hospital care and 79% of those admitted have not had any doses.
And with that, we wrap up primetime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First team, I'm David Paldano, along with our sign interpreter for tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Take care and good night.